It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.
Follow the prophet.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Follow the prophet.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Follow the prophet.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Travis Wing Goodsell. By their fruits ye shall know a false prophet. From a good one. Wouldn't it have been nice if the Jonestown followers of Jim Jones knew that and applied that so that they could identify him as a false prophet before they were slaughtered by him drinking the Kool-Aid? Wouldn't it have been nice if the Heaven's Gate community had applied that passage in Matthew to identify that psychopath, telling them that space aliens were behind Hale Bopp before he had them all murdered in a suicide pact? Was it Texas, where that one group were held up in a complex that the FBI raided, and shooting began, and lots of the followers of that religious cult also died? Wouldn't it have been nice if they had applied Matthew chapter 7 as well? And we have here in Utah FLDS groups. Wouldn't it have been nice if the FLDS communities, specifically under Warren Jeffs, had applied Matthew chapter 7? And I think they use the Book of Mormon too, don't they? It's also in the Book of Mormon. But wouldn't it have been nice so that they could recognize that the giving of their SNAP benefits to the bishops, who then distributed it among himself and themselves, because they had other bishops, and then lastly to the women and children who were the ones who applied for them? Wouldn't it have been nice for them to have known that their religion was false, that their prophets were false, before the FBI raided them and caused their lawyers to have to reunite the children with the biological mothers? As polygamy is also against the law, but, no longer anymore. Our new lieutenant governor had a bill passed through the legislature last year to make it a $750 fine and a community service, which allows the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to return to polygamy if they so are inclined to change the law of chastity to make it no longer legally and lawfully wedded to legally and lawfully wedded according to God's law. Nobody in the various religions thinks that their leaders, whether they call them prophets or not, none of them think that those guys are bad and evil, wolves in sheep's clothing. But that's the whole point of what the Jesus character is trying to portray, which he himself also failed. Which is that an irony when Jesus fails his own advice that he's supposed to be judged by? But, thank goodness he's given a second chance to come again and fix it. to do it right the second time. But the principle, nonetheless, is a good one. Because as the parable or the metaphor goes, if you have a seed, you plant it, and it's spoiled, rotten fruit, and you did everything you could to make sure that it would grow and grow good fruit, just like in Jacob's parable of the olive trees, you have no choice but to destroy the tree, because you can't keep using the seed from the spoiled fruit, because you now know what it will produce. And so you're the dummy if you think that taking bad seed from bad fruit is going to produce good fruit. And so the olive tree parable is a little different, because if you notice, he grafts the bad onto good, which then infuses good into the vine. But still, you have to trim off all the fruit parts. But if you do fruit trees, for example, it's going to be a little more complex. And so we have a coronavirus going on right now, and the fruit are well known. The Salt Lake Tribune, as I reported yesterday, I learned that the governor's group's task force chose not to follow the advice of the health professionals after the coronavirus came to Utah. Everything was all set up. The task force were ready to go. They were prepared. All they were waiting for was the coronavirus so that they can squash it immediately when it arrived. And they failed. They didn't do anything right. Nothing according to their plans. This is where you neglect the seed and allow it to die. This is what we are witnessing with the government of Utah for the coronavirus. And as a result, the deaths are Utahns, Mormons, who have died from coronavirus because of the government's failure. But who intervened to order the government? Did you know there's an organization that controls the government of Utah? Well, yeah, Trump. But if Utah wants to violate Trump, they do. They haven't, but they could, and they would, if it served Utah's interests. But there's one organization that is above all: the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In the beginning, when Governor Herbert finally came out and said, I guess we need to shut down, after it had already spread because they failed to do their jobs, as they emails are now released that that's what their intention was, to get all prepared and then nope, not going to do it. The church, Nelson, came out with a video saying that this is only going to be temporary. How many years is temporary? You know, how many centuries is the latter days? The prophet's time is not the Mormon's time. As Mormon time is 15 minutes late. At least it was 20 years ago. I don't know if it's changed since then. To be 30 minutes late or an hour late. But Yeah. And he held a fast. And the fast failed. So we knew by the fruit of the fast that, no, bad fast, roll over, play dead. And so he then held another one. He doubled down for Good Friday even. Not for the Jewish Passover. If anybody knows their Bible story in Exodus. See, there was this virus that swept through Egypt. And Moses said, we're all going to hold a fast. That fast will cure coronavirus. No! He had everybody stay home. And since Joseph was not too many generations previous, there were all these things called storehouses that had stored up grain when the seasons were plentiful. Remember that? Do you not think that those might have been used when all the livestock died, when all the crops died? And so, yeah, Nelson didn't even bother to mention Passover. Was more interested in Good Friday. And held a fast, and things just got worse. And as Herbert then opened up too early. He had been fudging the numbers, firing certain key people that were saying, hey, no, you can't do this, Herbert. You're going to kill people. Fired. And some are still missing, because not only did he have them fired, he had them indefinitely detained. As we have never heard from the Salt Lake Airport director. You know, supposedly it was child porn, but he still gets his day in court. Child porn is not a terrorist activity. So that doesn't apply to the Patriot Act. He's supposed to have his day in court. Nothing. Never heard from him again. He's gone. So much for if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to fear. Innocent until proven guilty, etc., etc. Does not exist. And so then the church likewise opened. Oh, Herbert says it's okay to open? Okay. Oh, Herbert says he wants to get church opened again? Oh, that's us. So, hey, we're opening church. We care about your safety. And then temples and missions resume and the church businesses. Which means you have to go back to work in order to pay for the church's business products. At City Creek Mall, such example. And your magic underwear. Although you could do it online, but you need the distribution center open to mail it to you. And so what are the consequences? What are the fruit of following the prophet? By going to church, going to the temple, giving the church money for your fast offerings. Remember, you got to pay fast offerings, not just fast. And then have the healing power of gratitude for Thanksgiving. Remember that video? And all this time, since the April conference, they were doing this Hear Him campaign. This is how we hear Him as a prophet of God. Well, how does it work with the fruits? Well, 2 apostles got it. Gong and then Renland. Huh. They didn't die, but they got it. Then we have anti-masker Mormons rise up and protest. We demand not to wear masks. It's taking away our free agency. It's the plan of Lucifer. All Mormons know about Lucifer's plan to take away agency, and that gives us happiness. As such Mormons are clueless that by not wearing a mask, by not staying home, you then have your agency taken from you by the virus. And now the vaccines are out, sort of. Got over 100,000 that have yet to be administered. And then we need a lot more for those who are living in Utah. Not just for those who got it, but those who didn't get it. Because if we had contained this in the beginning, as all previous administrations know to do, there wouldn't have been this outbreak. We wouldn't have needed to have done what we did. But instead, it was purposely, deliberately spread and escalated for the sole purpose of getting everybody infected so that they would need the virus, and we're finding out apparently we're going to need it for the rest of our lives. Aren't the pharmaceutical companies so lucky to get so much money for the rest of their lives? And then, of course, there are those who die. By their fruits ye shall know a false prophet. How complicated is this? Anybody who goes into denial, saying, no, the prophet speaks for God, and it's me who's lacking in faith if I get the virus and die. Oh, okay. You want to die, do you? You want your loved ones to die, do you? You love them so much that you sacrifice your kids to the school system? And even worse, you demand that they don't wear masks? So you sue the government and you sue the schools so that your kids can get infected and die? Good thinking. We know you by your fruits now. Your kids know you by your fruits. That's how I judged my parents, by their fruits. My parents wanted me dead too. Must be a Mormon thing. So, there you have it. Applying scriptures. Likening the scriptures unto ourselves, for Mormons out there.